Whiteout Mercy, the night Lake Michigan moved the street. The plow radio went dead. The wind turned the alley sideways. And a voice on my phone, one I didn't know yet, said my name like heat. Shawn, do not take Lower Wacker. Bring them to the ambulance bay on Ontario. Now, I'm Shawn Rivas, 30, second shift snowplow operator for Chicago Streets and Sand. My office is a cab that smells like diesel and coffee. My desk is a blade that eats other people's mistakes, and my inbox is orange lights in my rear view. If you rode the North 60 Blue Island 26th bus and a lane appeared where there wasn't one, that was me and a few dozen co-workers, kneeling in yellow trucks to the winter that pays our rent. I live in Pilsen, second floor over a bakery that survives on conchas and stubbornness. My route floats between River North and the near north side when the lake effect promises drama. The priority list is ambulance corridors first, then the rest of the city we love like it's a relative who borrows money. My mother calls storm nights code white because I never come home when I say I will, and she forgives me using soup. The rule that saved my shoulder last year is written in a handwriting only I can read. No Lower Wacker alone. When the wind uses the river as a megaphone, Lower Wacker Drive turns into a labyrinth with teeth. The city map says elevations. Your body says trap. At 1642, the NWS pinged. Lake effect snow warning for Cook County. Bands training from the northeast like a drum line with a grudge. The forecast called it 2 to 4. The lake said watch me. OEMC pushed snow command to level 4, which means we become a religion. By 1715, traffic near Ohio Street looked like a sink for ideas. Ambulance 43 called in stuck at the Ontario feeder with a cardiac transport. Lakeside Memorial ER, the big one tucked between Michigan Avenue and Columbus, requested plow priority for the bay. 2 CTA buses decided gravity was a rumor. My radio crackled, then stuttered, then died, a silence so loud I looked at it. My cell rang with a Streeterville number. Rivas? A voice said, low, quick, calm like stitches. This is Jai Patel, charge nurse at Lakeside Memorial ER. My supervisor got your cell from Snow Command. Do not bring any rigs down Lower Wacker. A box truck blocked the ramp. Send them to Ontario. I've got a code team staged in the bay. Copy, I said, and then because names are bridges, I'm Shawn. Okay, Shawn, he said, making my name sound like a plan. We keep the bay open, we win the hour, but the truly shocking part hadn't happened yet. I swung the blade east on Ontario, past state, chewed a path through 3 lanes of cars that had turned into excuses. The world narrowed to the edge of the blade, the mirror, the heartbeat. I threw the switch for salt and listened for the happy tick-tick the spinner makes when it remembers it's useful. A sedan tried to pass me right and learned religion. The ambulance bay at Lakeside sits under a sodium heater that makes everyone look like they slept okay. I carved an S-turn and backed the blade like I was apologizing. 2 medics in parkas eyed me like I was late for something important. A man in navy scrubs with a lead apron half on. Jai stood at the bay door with a radio and a clipboard, and a face that had run the last 6 hours on alertness and compassion. He wore a knit cap that had seen stories and a headlamp that made his eyes coin bright. You must be Shawn, he said, stepping up to the cab as if blizzards understood sidewalk rules. His cheeks were the kind of red that means Lake Michigan thinks you're delicious. I'm the guy who makes lines where there aren't any, I said. Good, he said. He pointed behind me where ambulance 43 crawled like an old dog. They're ours. Stay tight to my tracks, I told the medic. And he nodded because sometimes men understand choreography without lessons. The rig reversed into the bay. The rear doors flew. Cold walked in. A woman on the cart blinked at the ceiling like it was speaking a language she almost knew. Jai took one side, a resident took the other, and they moved in the ER ballet that makes you forgive fluorescent light. When the doors shut, it felt like punctuation. Jai turned back to me, headlamp haloing sleet. We're gonna get paged out again in 6 minutes, he said. Well, it's how this night wants to be. What do you need from me to keep your side honest? That question did a thing to my ribs. A list, I said. Which corridors are life right now, not just on paper? He tapped the clipboard. Ontario, Fairbanks, Erie to Michigan, Columbus southbound 1 lane for warming bus staging. Upper LSD to Ohio for trauma intercepts. Done, I said. And what do you need? He glanced at the bay door where boot prints were morphing into slush art. The heater is keeping up by lying. We have warming blankets, coffee, and a towel warmer that looks at me like I owe it money. Want a plow path from your bay to Fairbanks? No parking, so you can run backboard outside if you have to? I asked. He smiled, a quick slant that didn't apologize for itself. You speak ER, I see. I speak night shift, I said. Wait, don't miss this detail. I cut the path he asked for like I was tracing a future argument we wouldn't have to have. Engine 98 rolled past, lights white and red against snow blue, and the driver rolled his window to shout, "You're a saint, Rivas!" which in Chicago is a sentence that includes sarcasm and gratitude at once. At 1805, OEMC requested plow escort for ambulance 12 stuck at Chicago and Wabash. Diabetic emergency, BGL in the 40s, heating failing. I left a windrow where it would make sense later and went. Wabash had stopped pretending to be a street and decided to be an alley of brakes. I pushed a path, honked, waved, blessed, swore, and found the rig sideways between a rideshare and a bad decision. The medic's glove had frost on the cuff. The patient's lips were the wrong color. We got them moving. The medic shouted, "Ontario Bay," and I said, "Stay on my bumper." "Shawn," Jai said in my ear. "Speakerphone because radios and snow don't flirt. We've got a PEDS respiratory coming hot. If you can give me one lane on Erie, I'll owe you coffee." "You don't owe me anything," I said, then instantly knew I didn't mean it. "But I'll take coffee." "Deal," he said, and the single syllable felt like a map. Rehook. I thought keeping lanes open would be the hard part, but the lake had another lesson queued. At 1922, CTA called a bus stuck at Michigan and Ontario with 5 dialysis patients aboard and no way to move. Police radio said their paratransit units were buried. The driver's voice sounded like a person hosting panic for a friend. Jai texted, "We'll take them." "Can you stage at the bay?" "I'll get wheelchairs and warmers." I wrote back. On it. I chewed north on Michigan like I was asking a question nobody wanted. The bus was a blue and white confession, trying to hide behind snowfall. I flanked from the rear, carved 2-lane swaths for maneuver, and waved the driver to turn against intuition. We crawled the half block to the ER. Jai arrived with 3 nurses, 2 techs, a security officer with a salt scoop, and a smile that made the heater less necessary. We moved the dialysis patients one by one, blankets over faces, oxygen from a tank that had the manners to stay full. One man gripped my sleeve and said, "You work for the city." And I said, "Tonight I work for you." He cried, "Just once, like punctuation." Inside, the ER made that sound. Monitors thinking they're percussion. Printers pretending they're narrators. Voices speaking urgency without panic. Jai touched my elbow lightly, rest, not claim, and said, "Eat anything yet?" "Just salt and wind," I said. "Come to the bay door." 2 minutes. He disappeared like a magician who has no time for applause. I idled the plow under the heater. He came back with a paper cup of something that smelled like cardamom and cinnamon and permission. "Masala chai," he said. "From the respiratory therapist who knows it's a clinically indicated intervention." I laughed, and the laugh loosened a knot I hadn't noticed. "I don't know how to repay you," I said, my breath making little halos we could pretend were intentional. "Bring me Ontario clean every time you pass," he said. "And when you feel like you're about to white-knuckle your steering wheel into a new shape, text me here." "I'll text back me too," I nodded. I don't usually agree to rituals with men I've known 40 minutes. Winter makes exceptions seem like policy. The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the building, a generator coughed, then the phone on the dash rang again. "Rivas," Snow Command said. We've got a call from the bridge tender at Lakeshore Drive. Upper LSD is being closed southbound due to spindrift. 2 ambulances are coming up the Ohio ramp and need front and back cleared. Can you meet them and shepherd? CPD is stretched." "Copy," I said. "Shawn," Jai said at the same second. "I've got a trauma from a spin-out heading to you. ETA 7. The bay stays ours." "On my way," I said. And then silently to the truck, the sky, and any god punching a clock. Keep us together. But the most shocking part hadn't happened yet. Upper LSD at night in a whiteout feels like a hallway in a dream where doors keep moving. The wind came off the lake with opinions. Spindrift hit the windshield in bands that looked like newscast graphics. The Ohio ramp was a magician's tablecloth. I pulled it off without breaking the plates. The ambulances rose from the glare like myth, boxy and honest. I took point, blade down, and made a path the size of a promise. One rig hugged me. The other hugged the first. A sedan tried to wedge and CPD materialized to explain civic duty. We made the bay in a minute that lasted 10. Inside, the trauma team moved like syntax. Every comma in place, every verb chosen on purpose. Jai did something with his eyes that meant thank you and don't fall apart. And I see you. He said, one more lap. And I said, until the lake pays us. I thought we'd found our rhythm. But the city shifted the melody where concrete meets river. At 2110, a water main break turned Hubbard and McClurg into a slush aquarium. OEMC rerouted 4 rigs down Erie. I came at the intersection low and slow, blade kissing asphalt, salt singing. A box truck belly slid into the median and tried to be a fence. I called tow 12, who answered like a bedtime story about chains. While we waited, 2 college kids tried to push their Prius uphill in an earnest display of physics denial. I tapped the horn, jumped out and said, "Neutral, steer, don't brake." We made 30 feet that felt like a mile. One of them said, "Sir," like I had earned the title. I said, "No, sir. I'm Shawn. Keep the car. Keep your life." They nodded like they were passing a test they hadn't studied for. Back at the bay, Jai stood with his head tilted, listening to a voice on his earpiece that had decided to be news. "Oh, power blink," he said. "We're fine. Generator's holding." Then to me, "You okay?" "I keep being," I said. He smiled, then looked at my hand and his face changed. "You're bleeding," he said. And I looked down like he'd told me the weather. A thin cut on my knuckle had gone into statement territory. "Come here," he said, in the tone people use when they ask you to be smart. He took me to the threshold. Not inside, rules are rules, but under the heater, and did a quick glove on clean, butterfly, and tape that made it feel like a story with an ending. His gloved thumb rested a second on my wrist. He didn't squeeze. He rested. "Thank you," I said, ridiculous and exact. "Bring me Erie clean," he said, and for a second he looked tired enough to tell me his first secret and didn't. "And text me here when you forget breathing," I nodded. I climbed back into the cab. The heater hummed. The Polaroid, a teenager had pinned on the bay bulletin board, "Santa hats in July," shivered from our draft, as if memory were porous. OEMC paged, "All units, multi-car pileup reported at Lower Michigan and Illinois. Entrapment. Ambulance bay needs room for 3 back-to-backs." I said to the truck, "We're going to carve. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Lower Michigan in a storm is a tunnel with secrets." I cut Illinois first, then Lower Michigan like a surgeon who loves potholes. Rescue 1 slid past, grateful and grumpy. The pileup was a geometry problem. 3 cars at weird angles, a delivery van pretending it had read the manual, and a hydrant that did not deserve any of this attention. Firefighters did spreaders and saws. Medics did oxygen and storytelling. A toddler in a car seat stared at me like I was a cartoon he trusted. I made a snowball, pretended to eat it, made a face. He laughed, which made his mother cry with relief. CPD yelled at gravity and got partial compliance. When it all moved, it moved at once, like Chicago had decided to be a team. I raced the ambulances back to the bay and watched Jai orchestrate beds, rooms, hands, breaths. He is not a conductor. He is a translator between panic and protocol. He met my eyes and nodded once, long. I nodded back, short. Somewhere between those 2 gestures there was a small bridge that winter had not damaged. I thought the night would taper, but the lake saved one last trick the maps don't show. At 2340, Snow Command said the words, "I love and dread." We're going to hold what we have. It means maintain the lanes we fought for. Don't die for new ones. Let salt cure. It also means the adrenaline steps outside for a smoke and leaves you alone with your heart. Engine 98 honked a stupid song as they passed. Ambulance 12 flashed lights like applause. The lake roared its approval or disapproval, hard to tell. It was a lullaby either way. I made a last loop. Ontario, Erie, Fairbanks, Columbus South 1. Cars looked like boulders someone had placed for scenery. At the bay, the heater clicked, burned, clicked, rested. I stood with my door open and my hand under the hot breath for a second I could afford. Jai stepped out as if we had rehearsed, carrying 2 paper cups like evidence. He handed me one. "Last of the chai," he said. His eyes were soft in that particular way men's eyes get when the danger has stepped half a block away but left a forwarding address. "Thank you for calling me by my name," I said, surprising myself with the sentence. He met it without flinching. "Names keep people from becoming jobs," he said. "Also, your name is nice to say." "Jai," I tried, rolling it slow. "Yours too." The heater made a sound like a sigh. Snow hissed on the pavement like punctuation. I don't kiss in doorways at work. He doesn't either. We're not reckless in ways that turn into arguments later. We did the forehead thing. Quick and quiet, one beat under the heater, a ritual borrowed from better nights. Here? I said textless. Me too, he said, answerless but not empty. 2 days later, a Chicago OEMC posted a montage. Blue lights in white air, plows pushing dawn into existence, a line of wheelchairs rolling into warmth. The last frame, a half-second of volunteer, caught without trying, was a traffic cam still from the ambulance bay at Ontario. 2 figures under the heater. One in neon coat with a blade behind him. One in navy scrubs with a headlamp. 4 heads inclined, snow writing itself down between them. The caption, typed by someone who knows when to stop, read, "Small, honest, enough." Jai texted me the link, and after the kind of pause that counts as a decision. "Dinner. Always," I wrote. "Good," he said. "Because I am. We ate pozole at my mother's." She interrogated him gently about hand hygiene and flu shots, and then gave him tortillas like a blessing. We didn't make a plan. We made a rule. When OEMC says, "Hold what you have," we text here? And me too, anyway. He keeps a beanie in my truck. I keep a spare charger in his locker. When the lake rehearses, we listen. Sometimes the safest place isn't a cleared lane. Sometimes it's the 10 inches between 2 foreheads under a heater while the city remembers how to breathe. "I'm here," I say when the flakes go sidewise. "Me too," he says. And Chicago, the loud, beloved, temperamental thing, lets us try again.